on the UFC beat for UFC 254 going down this Saturday afternoon. For those of us in North America, I kind of like that early start time. So welcome to UFC Quick Picks, where myself and the other OddsShark UFC boys will be breaking down our best bets for the event. As always, I'm hitting lead off, and as always, we start in the main event where I am on Khabib Nurmagomedov to retain the lightweight title, and I like him to finish this fight inside the distance, which you can get at -115. So you take a look at Khabib's last two opponents, Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. What do they have in common? Well, besides getting absolutely manhandled, their best skill is their striking, which is something they share in common with Justin Gaethje. And you take a look at Khabib, he's had amazing success versus these high-level strikers because the threat of his takedowns significantly nullifies a fighter's striking ability because they have to be on guard to play defense. And we don't know a whole lot about Justin Gaethje's takedown defense, to be fair, because he hasn't really had a chance to display it. But I'm not willing to go against a guy who's 28-0 with 18 finishes in his career. Every fight starts on the feet, but with Khabib, they usually finish on the mat because there's not a whole lot his opponent can do once he latches onto them and drags them to the ground. And I'm not exaggerating here, guys. This is a rare example of an all-time great, a guy who's in that GOAT discussion, who is at the absolute pinnacle of his prime. And I think he's only getting better, so I like this spot for him. I like him to finish Gaethje. He's finished 4 of his last 6 fights. Gaethje's been finished in the octagon before, so Khabib, to take care of business, get to 29-0. Next up, we're dropping down one fight to the CoMain Event, where I am on Robert Whittaker as a small underdog, -105 versus Jared Cannonier. And I think this is simply the case of the wrong fighter is being favored here. You know, I love the momentum that Whittaker is bringing into this fight. He was in a bit of an unusual spot, it seemed, after the Adesanya loss, and some people were doubting him, but he came to Fight Island, took care of business against Darren Till, and I like that he's been through that Fight Island drill before. I think most fighters and UFC personnel would tell you it's a much different routine than the typical fight week that fighters would go through in non-coronavirus times. And I also think this is a bit of a classic spot where this is the most difficult challenger of Cannonier's career, and also the biggest fight of his career in terms of what's on the line. If he wins this fight, it's very likely that he'll be next in line for a middleweight title shot, whereas Whittaker, that's not the case. He's been here, done that. He's been in the big title fights before. He's been in the big main events before. He's climbed that ladder before in his career. So I love his momentum, I love his experience, and I love his value. So give me a Robert Whittaker in the co-main event. So there you have it, my 2 favorite bets for UFC 254. Next up, here's Scotty. Woo!
Thanks, Joe. UFC 254 is shaping up to be a good one. And I'm going to start in the main event just like you did. And I hate to agree with you, but I also like the champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov, the Eagle, to retain his title against Justin Gaethje. But I'm going to go with a little longer odds, and I'm going to take Khabib by submission. We saw this most recently against Dustin Poirier. He got the rear naked choke. Of course, Conor McGregor, he had the neck crank. Justin Gaethje, very similar fighter to both Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. Of course, we do not know too much about Justin Gaethje's takedown defense. As you mentioned, he wasn't pressured too much in his previous fights. Michael Johnson did take him down early in Gaethje's UFC career. In his final fight in World Series of Fighting, he was also taken down a couple times as well. So that is something to note. One thing that I noticed when looking back at Gaethje's fight with Ferguson and Poirier and Eddie Alvarez is at times he's a little hesitant. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically he will allow a fighter to hit him and he sort of will take the punch before he delivers backwards. And of course he throws with ferocity. But if he does that against Khabib, there's a good chance that Khabib blast doubles him against the cage and brings him to the floor. Or Khabib may throw that overhand eagle punch that he landed on Conor and dropped him. So I just think eventually Khabib will get him to the floor, tire him out, and get the submission. Also for the co-main event, again, Joe, I'm with you. I like Robert the Reaper Whittaker to get his second win in a row and get closer to regaining his title against Israel Adesanya. One of the things I noticed in Jared Cannonier's previous fights, David Branch and Anderson, and he likes to really close the distance before he throws. Of course, he's got tremendous power in his hands. Used to knock out guys at heavyweight, now at middleweight. So I think just getting in, closing that distance, that's going to be an issue against a guy like Robert Whittaker, who's very strategic. He's sharp. He throws those kicks, especially that oblique kick. Landed on Darren Till really bad. He landed it on Yoel Romero a few times. And I just think he's going to chip away at Cannonier with some kicks at long range, and I think he's faster than Cannonier. So eventually, I think he wins this one by decision, but I'll just take Whittaker at -105. However, my best bet for this card, I'm going to throw this in really quickly, is Magomed Ankalaev and Ion Cutelaba. Not to happen. This fight has been canceled 4 previous times or 3 previous times, whatever it is. So that's the best bet. That fight doesn't go forward. Ian, what do you got?
All right, thank you, Joe and Scott. I'm sure your picks were absolutely wonderful, but let's get into some winning picks for UFC 254. And I have a pick in the main event as well as in the co-main event. We're going to start, of course, in the main event. And you're not going to find me betting against Khabib Nurmagomedov. He just demolishes every single guy that he fights. I bet against him when he fought Conor McGregor, and I felt like an idiot for doing so. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. But I'm not going to take him just to win straight up at -330. There's no value there. So I did find a big plus money play that I absolutely love in the main event, and that's Khabib Nurmagomedov to defeat Justin Gaethje via decision at +270. So the fight needs to go all 5 rounds, and then he will win via the judges' scorecards, and I think that's insane value for that to happen at +270. I mean, listen, I know Khabib finished his last 2 opponents in Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, but before that, he took Ally Quinta the full 5 rounds and won by decision, and he also beat Edson Barboza by decision. So he's not exactly always been a finishing machine. In fact, in 50% of his UFC fights have gone to decision. Granted, most of those were only 3-round fights. Only one was a full 5-round fight, and that was against Ally Quinta. But I still think there's a ton of value on that happening again at +270. Also, if anyone can go 5 rounds against Khabib Nurmagomedov, it's got to be Justin Gaethje. This guy is as tough as they come. He's only been finished twice in his MMA career, and they were both against guys who kind of stood up and just threw bombs at him all fight. That's not what Khabib's going to do. Khabib's obviously going to try to wrestle him, take him to the ground. And also, Justin Gaethje comes from a wrestling background, so I'm not saying he's going to be able to completely stop Khabib, but he should be able to at least slow down Khabib's attack. So I'll take Khabib by decision in the main event at +270. And then in the co-main event, I'm actually going to take Jared Cannonier at -115. I was surprised when I first looked at the odds to see that he was a favorite, but after looking at it closer, I actually am going to take Cannonier to beat the former champion Robert Whittaker. First of all, Robert Whittaker is coming off a 5-round war against Darren Till back in late July. I would have liked to see him take more time off, especially with the amount of damage he's absorbed so far in his career, and the fact that he's going up against Jared Cannonier, who has 3 straight TKO finishes since dropping down to middleweight. But an even bigger reason why I like Jared Cannonier in this fight is his defense. He only absorbs 2.82 significant strikes per minute compared to Whittaker at 3.43, and he also has a significant strike defense percentage of 66% compared to Whittaker at 61%. So I'm going to take Jared Cannonier -115 in the co-main event. So there we go. Those are our 3 picks for this weekend's massive UFC 254 card. If you want to see more, head over to oddshark.com to check out Scott's article where he breaks down every fight on the main card. Best of luck to your bets and enjoy UFC 254.